like, if I'm like looking at somebody's car build where I not draw the line, but like I'll be way more impressed when I see someone do something where it's like you really had to like, you know, it's like there's builds where it's just bolt-on stuff. It's all just off-the-shelf parts. And when you see one with a lot of fabrication, or like you had to find someone to make you wide-body fenders, you know, I don't know. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it takes that next level of like, you wanted something that much more unique. And that's what I always like about FD as well, is the cars are not the same.
No.
Like, no team's really got the same car. I mean, it's like the most mixed cars that you'll ever see.
Yeah, it's a huge variety. I mean, you have from like, there's no more S13s, I don't think, but S14, 240s, E36, E46, E90, Mustang, Corvette, Cadillac, like there's a huge variety.
Is the four-door Toyota deal still in there? That like
yes,
the
Corolla,
car? Yeah, the Corolla.
It's Ryan Turk's car. yeah,
Turk's
Corolla
car.
Supra.
That thing never looked like it should be in an
8.6. Yeah, well, that's like they got around a gray area in the rule. Your car has to come rear-wheel drive. You can't convert it. Corollas come front-wheel drive, but like. Well, it was a Scion that used to be Osbo's car, which is now Turk's car. But both the Scion and the early Corollas, I think now they come all-wheel drive here. But they came all-wheel drive in some other country. And that's how they got around the rule to make it rear-wheel drive, you know. But Steph Papadakis, he's smart. He's one of those, like, nerd guys that, like, figures out those weird niche things to make things better.
He's one of those guys where if you're like around him and he starts talking, you're just like, okay,
let me listen. Yeah,
what do you got to
sure.
say? Come on, tell us.
I like those kind of people who have that approach of like, instead of just like more, they're like, how can we refine this?
Yeah.
How can we take what we have and make it that much better? So I really admire that approach, as opposed to the people who are just like, oh, we don't have enough power with this engine. All right, let's just go buy the most expensive LS, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like in drag racing, it's like, okay, pro-charged Hemi, you know, we're losing races, pro-charged Hemi.
I've spent a lot of time around Brett LaSala. His tuner, Joe Obstetter, is really, really intelligent, and I've gotten to speak a lot with him, and he talks about things in such fine increments that you're like, oh, of course you can like progress so quickly, but so slowly, because you're making such small changes, and like you do something and you like check over everything, like, you know, even with the engine program, like they've gotten that so dialed in over time because they've just like small changes, not just like we changed all the rods and pistons combo and all this and that, and like it's just like these fine incremental improvements that like when
they
you
got
zoom
the base
out,
down and then just slowly turned it up.
And when
from
you
there.
zoom out over like 2 years, you're like, oh wow, that's so impressive. Like you guys got there so quickly. It's like, no, it's just like really small incremental changes every pass.
Yeah.
And I think that's similar to your approach, is like you just kind of keep like ironing out the same deal for long enough, and suddenly it's better than everybody else's because you've just worked at the same thing long enough.
Yeah, I get more joy out of that, like fine tuning something as opposed to just like slapping the latest and greatest thing on it. But the problem is for YouTube, that doesn't really work. You know, it's like,
has to translate it all.
You see how like most YouTubers, car YouTubers, like their builds get to like that 90-95% stage, but it's like going from 95% to 100% takes, say, 30-40% the time, you know? So, but once you get to 95, it's kind of like, okay, like it's finished, it runs, it drives, it did a little bit of what it's meant to do, like I'm done, like the end of the movie, you know? Whereas like I love to go and like try to, you know, iron out like every last detail and make something like perfect, but it's hard to be able to do that with YouTube, because it's not that entertaining. I get it, you know?
People want to see the build. Do they even care that much about the driving? I've always felt they don't, which is crazy. I think, but they'd be mad if you didn't use it.
Oh, dude, so that's a great
like if like you have to at least drive it once to proof of concept, but then they don't want to watch any more of that.
Right, 100%. Well, you know what's infuriating? Oh, so it's funny, when I started YouTube, I was like, I got this Miata. It's kind of a long story. We'll have to get into it, like how I met Adam and how I ended up with my Miata. I'm not even a Miata guy. It just like was a deal.
You're a Miata guy. I don't know if you know that.
I've become a Miata guy.
In everybody's mind, you're a Miata.
I know, but I'm not. I was literally going to buy a 240 and I came across that Miata. So basically, we were going to buy a Miata. Adam wanted to buy a Miata. And basically, my bank, I had Bank of America, and they at the time had teller assist, so you could get money out on the weekends. You could pull like 10 grand out, which was amazing. And they got rid of it, which is annoying because it was awesome for buying cars.
When would this era have been for like you and Adam? Like Adam just had like his cream car.
No, he didn't even have. No, he would have had that.
Okay.
So we'll have to backtrack at some point.
Just to like know, I guess, where we're at.
He had
Adam's story.
He had his E90,
and yours.
his white E90, and he had the cream S13. And we were going to buy a Miata, and then it wasn't as nice as we thought it was going to be. Basically, what I was getting at with the bank thing is I had to pull the money out because he couldn't get cash and it was a weekend. Mm-hmm. And it was like all the money I had, of course, but I was like, this guy, I trust him. So anyway, I pulled the money out. We didn't end up buying that car. And we were in Lakeland, and like we started looking. I'm looking for a 240, and I come across this turbo Miata for $3,200. I'm like, this is a pretty good deal. It's got a hard top, coilovers, turbo.
Got your cash out.
Yeah, the money's here. So I went and bought it, and that's how I ended up with my Miata. But I had to take it apart and like do a clutch and stuff. And I was like, basically in my head, I was like, hopefully people bear with me for this working on it part. Then we'll get to the driving, which is what people are going to want to see.
Yeah, like you're rushing through the video.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're going to drive soon. I promise, guys. And then the little did I know that the driving does way worse than the working. And I see so many people now still to this day who like have, whether it's drag racing, drifting, whatever. And they're like, oh, sorry, guys, there's been a lot of build content. We'll get back to the driving soon. I'm like, how have you not figured this out yet? Like the driving is not the most interesting part. And even for me watching, like I would rather watch build stuff than driving stuff for the most part. But that's why I think drag racing is nice for YouTube, because you at least have a metric of like, we tore the car down, we made all these changes, did it go faster? And there's some anticipation, and there's a end game, and there's something to look forward to. Whereas with drifting, it's like I can rebuild my whole Miata, which I'm gonna eventually do because I'm gonna put a NASCAR motor in it and a dog box. But when I take it back out, it's not gonna, like, from the outside perspective, it's not really gonna look that much different driving wise, I'll feel the difference, but like it's hard to translate that on a video for someone to see like, wow.
Well, you probably know in the editing side where you're like trying to edit like a drift day where you're like, this is tough to go through.
Yeah.
Like I've done like, I think like a road course video or two, and I'm just like, what do I even include?
Yeah.
The Freedom 500, like I had an in-car video.
Those are
I'm
so
like,
hard.
What do I even include?
There's so much footage. Yeah.
And there's like so much nothingness too.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, do people even care about this? I'm watching this and I'm like, this isn't interesting at all.
Yeah, like trying to.
They filmed it better. Original. Like Garrett already has a better video of this.
Right. With the live stream. Yeah. No, that one's tough. And that's like a lot of people. You were going to say that people would get mad if I didn't drive it. It's funny because people would complain about how they don't like the drifting videos, and the drift videos get terrible views. So now, like a lot of times I go drifting, I don't even film it. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I'll bring my camera, but I don't make a video on it. Because like I can't make a video just taking my F80 to OSW. Nobody's going to watch it. Yeah. And it's going to just hurt my channel. So I just don't bother. But then I recently started getting comments like, Taylor's a poser. He doesn't even drift anymore. And I'm like, little do you know that like I just don't film it anymore. But that's my struggle with like traveling. People are like, oh, why don't you go to this, YouTube event or this YouTube thing, driving thing, this event? And I'm like, because it's hard to justify spending a week and a half to go halfway across the country to some event that I'm going to barely get one video out of that people aren't going to watch. Yeah. And then come back when I could spend that week and a half like working on stuff in the shop, making progress and making 2 videos and videos that people are going to want to watch. And
you didn't just spend a week, thousands of dollars and make no progress on a vehicle.
Yes, exactly.
And be away from your home and all that annoying stuff. But then people are like, oh, you just stay at home. You don't even travel. I'm like,
I get that. You're like, you're a hermit. You're whatever. And I'm like, it's just... Personally, I enjoy being in the shop, wrenching and building something as much as the going out and traveling and driving. I enjoy them both for different reasons, but like they're both rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not like I'm going to lose money on the video no matter what driving I do. But that's okay. Like it's not that. It's just with the way YouTube works, like if you have a bad video and a bad video and a bad video, it's like it brings your channel just down. And then you have what would be a good video, but the algorithm's like, hey man, I don't know, your last few videos like didn't hit. So like we're not really going to push this one as much. So then it's harder. You can dig yourself into a hole pretty easy.
Yeah. You can fall into a death spiral.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So it's like, I wouldn't mind, like, if that wasn't the case, I'd still make a video on taking my F80 out for the people that want to watch it. But it's like, I can't risk that. I can't risk putting up a bad video and a bad video and a bad video. And then when I have a good video, I can't climb back out of that hole.
It's funny because I was thinking about that too when I was thinking about you coming on. I was like, how much over time does the viewership drive you versus you kind of have to like steer yourself almost, because like, you know, you got the jet boat and that's a risk.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You have
and it
no
didn't
idea.
Pay off. No,
it's
it's
a
not
risk
bad.
though, but you gotta roll the dice. You gotta take a risk, but also if it's something you want versus what you know is gonna do better, you have to kind of like, you can't just go towards what's gonna do better, because then suddenly you're not even
enthusiastic.
It's not even your channel anymore. It's just you're following like the people.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's like something I think about a lot. And it's like, for me, everything I do, any project I've ever built and ever will build, I hope, is something I want to build. But it's just a matter of like, if I've got 3 cars that I want to build, I got to pick the one that I think would do best, because obviously it needs to make sense and it needs to work.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there's steerage, but I generally just try to do what I want to do. But it is tough, because it's like, you could be like, I'm going to do this build, it's going to be sick, and like you line it all up and you spend a bunch of money up front on like the car and the motor and all this stuff, and then it doesn't do well, and it does so bad that you can't even make videos on it because it might tank your channel. So then you've just got to like, you just wasted, you know? So it's tough, and it's like, at this point, what can I even do that's unique-ish, you know?
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm like, I don't even care about a YouTube build because it's all been done.
That's my thing. And like, I'm running out of things that I want to build, and which is weird to say, because it used to be a lot of things, but I've kind of X'd every street car off of that list, because I got my F80s, and like they kind of fill that void where like, they're fun to drive, they're enjoyable, but they're super comfortable. Yeah. And so like anytime I go to drive somewhere, I mean, I might sell one of mine, but I just take that, because
you're not going to drive the 86.
Right. No,
like,
never.
oh, wow.
Yeah, like I got to go to the
In
store.
what metric is this better?
Never.
For
nothing.
people looking at me?
Yeah, I mean, but then people are going to look at me, and I'm like, I don't even want that. Like, you know?
That's the only metric it's more interesting, is like in a parking lot when you're walking to it.
Right. And I'm just like, I'm at the age where like I just don't enjoy driving crappy cars around anymore.
Yeah.
And like even my turbo truck, like I need to get the AC done on it. I just need a different compressor. But like it's pretty comfortable still, but compared to the F80, it's not. And I still have fun driving the F80 around, and the truck's more likely to break down on me. So it's like, the reality of it is I can lie to myself as much as I want and say like, oh, if I get a JZX 100, I'm gonna street drive it, daily it. But the reality is I won't.
Yeah.
You know, because I can do that in the F80. I still get to enjoy driving, but it's comfortable. So now I'm like, well, what's the point of building any street car? Like I wanted to build like an NA, EG, Civic hatch, like grip circuit car, street car. Never gonna drive it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's gonna sit.
It's just gonna sit, and I hate having vehicles.
And you're just
that
building
sit.
it then for like the viewership to watch it, and then that's why honestly, giveaways kind of make sense in some way, just for that.
Right.
I don't really like them when it's not really for that. When it's not for like, this is something I want to build. I don't want it. We'll just give it away after.
Right.
That's kind of the most authentic way I feel like to do it.
And I think that's
or if a YouTube build either ends that way or it burns down on a track.
True.
That also is one of the only ends sometimes where people aren't mad at you.
That's true.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. For the full podcast, check us out on Bogetti Studios YouTube and all your audio platforms. Also, hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any of the new Bogetti clips coming up.